I'm going to start this video off on Carl Bushby. I'll get to his life story here in a second. Now, I only found out about this guy several days ago. Random video popped up here on YouTube on Carl Bushby. I'll get to his story here in a minute. But anyway, the newest video that I can find on him is about 2 weeks old. And at that time, he was still holed up in France, that they wouldn't let him walk. There's a tunnel that goes between France and the UK. It's all car traffic. They won't let you walk it. I would think, as moderately famous as this guy is, they would just stop the traffic for him for whatever length of time it would take him to walk this tunnel. A couple hours, I think. Just stop the train. Maybe they could pick some time at non-peak time. Say, well, like at 4 in the morning, there's or maybe at 2 in the morning there's moderate traffic. So look, we'll stop the traffic for you, and you can walk it because there's got to be cameras following this guy. They may. I think if they'd done that, there'd be a lot of media coverage, and I don't see that. But now he was considering actually swimming, from France, back to the UK. But anyway, let me give you the story, at least as I understand it. Now, in 1998, he was down in the southern part of South America in Chile, and he began to he walked from almost a little town in southern Chile that he walked, through Chile, through South America. He walked across the Darien Gap. If you don't know, the Darien Gap is it's a jungle. There's a lot of predatory animals down there. There's a civil war going on in that part of South America. There's drug smugglers. There's people smugglers all going through there, and just a very not a real nice part of the world to walk through. But he walked through that, survived it, made his way through the U.S. Now, apparently, his son had grown. He started this in '98. By the time he hit the U.S., it was his son had pretty much grown up. So his son, wanted to find a little bit about his father. So apparently his son had joined him for part of the walk through the U.S. And then once he got up into Canada, I think his son had left and went back to the U.K. But anyway, he made it up to Alaska, waited for the Bering Sea to freeze over. He walked across the Bering Sea into Russia. Apparently, he'd gotten some immigration problems in Russia. They had imprisoned him. They forced him to do a few things. He eventually made it. He had to actually swim across the Caspian Sea. But he said he had a support boat that would he would swim a little bit. He'll spend the night on a support boat, get back in the water, swim a little bit more until eventually made it. It's about 150, 200 miles across the Caspian Sea, something like that. Finally made his way, through Europe. I started this in 1998. He's pretty much spent the past 30 years living off the land, living off the generosity of native people. Now, a friend of mine, I was trying to tell him this story, and a friend of mine said, "No, he can't have done that. He's got to have flown back home, done it, a little bit by bit." And I said, "No, I don't think that's the way he's done it. I think he's just pretty much walked his way around the world. That's pretty much the way he's done it." And if somebody knows Carl Bushby, Carl with a K, Bushby, there's a handful of videos, not as much as you would think. Now, if someone were going to do a similar journey today, what they would do, it would be a team of like about 4 or 5 people. They would start off, in South America. There would be one person to have a backpack with all the camping gear, another person with, solar panels so they could power. A third person with food, and then a fourth person would have the satellite service, the satellite. Can't think of it. What I'm talking about. But anyway, there would be about 4 or 5 different people carrying all the gear and just walk across. Walk across the world. If somebody was going to do that today, and they would have all their sponsors and visas and that type of thing all pre-arranged, have it much more organized. But this guy just kind of did it on his own, just kind of living off the land and stuff. But an interesting story. and he was saying that there's several videos of him he's made or people have made for him, and talking about how lonely it gets sometimes being out there in the middle of nowhere, just kind of with your own thoughts and stuff. And yeah, I can imagine it would be pretty lonely, because there's a lot of the world. Like there's just nothing there. You're walking for miles and miles, but just nothing there. It's just either bare land or forest or whatever. And certainly be an interesting journey. And I'm sure I'm sure he'll be all over YouTube once this is all done. He'll write a bunch of books. People will do his memoirs and that type of thing. Carl Bushby, if you want to look him up. Let me try to, I'll get to my pickup here in a couple minutes. Now, I was watching another video. I like watching videos like this. This is on people, Americans with German-sounding names. Now, I was born in Phoenix. I consider myself an American. I don't consider myself any other way, but I do consider myself of different nationalities. My mother was Scotch-Irish, so, I can claim that heritage. My grandma, I think, was Native American. I'm not 100% sure, though. I think she was Cherokee, Blackfoot, and Crow, because she talked about those tribes, but I don't know that for a fact. She was born in Kansas, so back in the late 1800s, but I'm not 100% sure of anything. You go back a few generations, and I don't know who all my kinfolk were. Now, the thing I was going to comment on, there were people back in the 1800s that had German names. Now, there was a large German-speaking population here in the U.S. With small villages that, small town or large towns. Along with English-speaking newspapers, they would have German-speaking newspapers. They would be taught English and German. Like now, there's there's schools that teach English and Spanish. There were schools that back to the late 1800s, there were schools that taught German. But there's been several major wars the U.S. has fought with Germany, and a lot of people with German names, dropped that real quick because there were a lot of suspicions. People were getting dragged out in the street and lynched just because they were of German heritage. So a lot of people just changed their names. There were people with the name like Weiss, which means white in German. They would change it to White. A Becker, where they change it to Baker. There's a whole bunch of names like that. Now, the oldest form of the German name, let me say that right. The oldest Godman name that I know of was this James Herbert Godman. He was an officer in the Union Army. In a Civil War. But you can look him up. There's actually a Wikipedia post, article on James Herbert Godman, and the Godman Air Force Base in Kentucky. I think that's who he was. I think that's who it was named after, but I may be wrong on that because Kentucky, there is a Godman community in Kentucky. There's a cemetery. I'm told. I've never been there. There's a cemetery in Kentucky. Only people named Godman can be buried there. So that's kind of interesting. Now, I don't know. I'm just curious if at one time, because a lot of people with German names would change them, but Americanize German-sounding names. Now, the Gottman, Gottmann, would be Godman in German. G-O-T-T is Gott in German. So I'm wondering if at one time the Godman name was Gottman, Gottmann. But I don't know. I'm just curious if anybody knows the early history of there may be other people, maybe kinfolk of mine watching my videos and saying, I know the entire history of the Godman family. Let me tell it to you. Hey, if you do, join up with me. Comment on this video, and we'll get together and I'll update my video. I'll post it, with their understanding of the name. I'm just curious if someone did change the name, or maybe it's always now. There's in England, there's a Godmanshire, Godmanshire, something like that. Godmanshire in England, because I've looked all this stuff up just because I was curious. There's a Godmanshire in England, so maybe a lot of Anglo-Saxons come to the British Isles. So after the Romans left, settled there. You left mainland Europe for England, and then they came here. So Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on anything. Just curious if anybody else knows the history there. But so I've always considered myself a red blood American. My pickup, I'm gonna go. It's getting daylight outside. It's I've got 2 or 3 hours between when it turns daylight and when it gets too blessed hot to work. One thing I've been tempted to do, that one housing. Now I had 4 of those things. I've taken 2 apart. 2 are still intact. What I might do. Now I've had trouble making that one work. So what I might do is just use an existing housing that I've got, air check it, make sure that it works, put it in there. Just figure I only have a month or so on it. By that time, I could have something else rebuilt and go back in there, with another transmission case. That may be what I do. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna figure that out later this morning. There's about 3 of my customers that had called me, and this is from the past 3 or 4 days. I told them my pickup is I got transmission issues, and they said, "Yeah, well, if I need you, this is about 3 days ago. One was just last night. This lady, I've told her 3 times that my transmission was broken, and she actually talked to her son. Her son said, "Yeah, well, I'll come pick you up." I've known these people for a while, and I trust them. The only people I would get in a vehicle with are people I've known for a while and trust. As total stranger, I'm not going to get in a vehicle with them. Have all my, because you just don't know you just can't trust people anymore if you don't know them. But these people I know. But this guy never did get back with me. There's about 3 people that said, "Yeah, I'll come pick you up," and they haven't. So I'm not sure what's going on. But I've been busy working my pickup. I can't take too much time worrying about whether they're going to call me to show up or not. Anyway, let's keep life interesting and exciting. I got to keep. Trying to think. There's a phrase that said, "If you keep a stiff upper lip, you won't be much fun to kiss," or something like that. Or in German, it's "Bleib stark." I like saying that. "Bleib stark." Stay strong. I hear that's the cats. They like to get up here and mess around the roof. Almost makes me think it's ghosts messing around on my roof, but they're cats. Cats that get up here, and these are all strays. It's not ghosts. Now the ghost let me know they're here in other ways. Some people have asked me if I believe in ghosts. I said, well, I've never seen one, but they've hidden my stuff. They've done other stuff that two of them I think are ex-girlfriends that have passed on. One, let's say, she drank herself to death. Another one, I'll cover her later. There might be a third one hanging around here. I think, and me and those 1 or 2 or 3 chicks are having lots of astral sex after I go to sleep. I've covered astral sex a few times. Now I have no conscious memory of it, just kind of have some feeling that's going on. I've tried to consciously astral project, and I did try that again today. When it gets too hot to go out and mess with my pickup. Okay, let's keep life interesting and exciting. I'm trying to stretch these videos out longer and longer if I possibly can, because people seem to like these longer videos. I don't think they would get tired of hearing me ramble on. It gives me a chance to practice my vocal skills, and I definitely need to work on my vocal skills, because I listen to my videos back and say, yeah, that's one place I need to work on, because a lot of times I'll use certain phrases that I'll be better off not to, that would make my videos more coherent if I didn't use those. I definitely need to work on my skills. That's why my YouTube channel has stayed small. Combination of that, and I need to find more and more interesting material to cover. I need to get out and do some more outdoor stuff. If some chick wants to do some outdoor stuff with me, hiking mountains somewhere, it's right. Monday's supposed to cool down quite a bit. Supposed to get some storms come in. If some chick wants to go do that waterfall hike that's up in the White Tanks, that's about 10 miles north and 10 miles west of here. Some chick wants to do the White Tanks hike with me, let me know. But still would get out there early, because it's Monday's supposed to get in the upper 90s rather than 118 or 120. Especially if you come here from a cooler climate, that's a good way to suffer from some serious medical issues if you're not acclimatized. And I was born in Phoenix. I'm acclimatized even then. See, what's the phrase? Only mad. I'm trying to get this right. It's not very politically correct, and you don't hear it too much anymore. I used to. Only mad dogs and Englishmen would venture out in the noonday sun. I think that's when they were messing around in somewhere in Africa when it was pretty hot out there. Anyway,